Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know from Steve's intro, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Hey, welcome.
Whoa. Where's Ellen?
Ellen? What?
Where's Zach? Where's Stan?
Okay, we've got some truants. They're basically truants. We have the truant
Do they
officer.
actually have a life? Are they actually busy doing something?
They are actually busy doing other things. Yeah, we never know what Stan's up to. Stan, he comes, he goes, he disappears, he appears. I think the last time we saw him, he was freezing in Chicago.
Maybe we're the Lumen twins. It's the Lumen twins today.
Oh, that's right. We're not twins. I'm a lot older than you are, buddy. But that
I'm
being
better
said,
looking.
Yeah, you are better looking because, I may be wiser. That's the only thing I have on you. I may have a little bit more experience in wisdom, but I never use it. That's the problem. But yeah, they're all out doing other things. We dug into the barrel of you Lumen brothers and sisters, and they're busy. They're all doing fine, but some of them just can't make it today. Some of them were, had other things. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it.
Anne was not at URTA. She's under the weather right now, so she gets a pass.
Yeah, she gets a pass. Stan, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I think I don't know if he gets a pass or not. So, but Zach's busy. Ellen's got company. She's got this incredible house in the islands. People are knocking at her door trying to get in. She's got to be what is she? She's the hostess of the mostess in St. Bart's.
She specializes in grilled octopus, too.
She does.
So people from all over the Caribbean come to get her grilled octopus.
This is true. And, I don't know if you've ever had her grilled octopus appetizers, but she makes this incredible chutney sauce made out of coconuts and sea turtles. I've had it. Oh. It's awesome. It's just awesome. Who else? Brackley, he just got back from URTA's and he's swamped. But anyway, we're going to have a good time. Steve and I, okay? This is the way it should be. Because if you think about it, Car Talk was Ray and Tom. Just two.
Right, mano y mano.
Mano y mano, two brothers just, shooting the crap, as they say. Okay. First of all, we're talking about Chicago. You just got back from Chicago, right?
Yes, and it was cold.
And now you're back in Dallas. And how's the weather there?
It's damn cold here. So, I was in Chicago and it was like 21 degrees and the Arctic blast was coming in. Ooh. And I managed to get out on Saturday before that blast got to me. But 24 hours later, it drifted down to Dallas. So we're not like Chicago. Chicago's prepared for this. We have, a quarter inch of snow and hell comes to Texas. It's people slipping and sliding and, you take your life in your hands, go into your mailbox.
It's unbelievable. I was just watching it on CNN. There was a huge thing there. And I'm watching these cars on Central Expressway, which is I-75, like completely sliding sideways. I said, what are these idiots doing on this street, right, that's completely covered with ice?
Well, what are they doing traveling at 60 miles an hour?
All I know is that I first arrived in Dallas in 1977. And that first ice storm, I couldn't believe it. And then watching this ice storm, nothing has changed. That was 1977. What was that, 50 years ago? I know
we're trying to open an opera here on Saturday.
Forget it.
And we have canceled Monday's rehearsal. We have canceled Tuesday's rehearsal. So I'm sure the director is about to freak out. So maybe we'll have a rehearsal tomorrow night because they always take a day off before the show opens to rest their voices. So we could conceivably go all week with no rehearsal and just boom, Saturday, here we are.
Yeah, you could. You know what's so crazy though, Steve, is that ever since 1977, like I said, my first year in Dallas, I've been wondering, where's the salt? Normally when you have icy streets, these big trucks come by and they lay down layers of salt, right? So that you don't have icy streets. They do it everywhere. They do it in Colorado, they do it in Detroit, everywhere, New York. But there's no salt. Why are these streets covered with ice? I just don't understand.
Because there's no salt.
There's no salt.
It's a rhetorical question.
Is there no salt in Dallas, in Texas?
You would think we're not that far from the ocean. We could find some salt.
It happens every year. There are ice storms in Texas. I just don't understand.
I think when I talk to, you talk to the people in Austin, they'll tell you, well, it doesn't happen very often. So why have salt? Well, it happens often enough. And if you want your city to shut down, I mean, we are shut down today over a quarter of an inch of snow. Now, there's some ice there too, but I mean, come on.
I mean, snow's not bad. I mean, snow, if it's fluffy and all that, you could drive in snow slowly and carefully. But ice, that's a whole nother story. I mean, people watch your news on CNN. You will see what I'm talking about. There are these unbelievable videos. Anyway, so you went from one cold place to a colder place, so now you're stuck in the house. Of course, you're available today because you're stuck in the house.
I can't
go
go anywhere.
Awesome. You can't go anywhere. You are there. But let's talk a little bit about Chicago. You were in Chicago last weekend at the URTA auditions. Why don't you give us a quick URTA report?
We had 3 days of undergraduates presenting their portfolios there. So there was a nice little turnout. Of course, there was like one TD student and 60 schools were all whining and dining him.
60 schools? How many schools?
It was something. I think URTA has up to 60 now.
How many lighting students were there?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question because URTA did something different this year. They had the in-person interviews, and then they had done a survey, and they had found that there was a lot of support from both faculty and potential candidates to do Zoom interviews. Mm-hmm. So I spent Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday interviewing people in Chicago, and Saturday I have another 14 interviews with lighting design students by Zoom. So I will Zoom those students. So I don't know, it sounds like maybe 30-ish, all in all, probably lighting students. And I don't know that everyone was looking for a lighting designer. So it was interesting. Some people were looking for a large cohort, and some people were there just looking for one student. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how desperate people were in regards to seeing a lot of people. There were some very good students there, very good students and strong portfolios in all areas. So I think it's going to be good.
Okay, well, I just have a question. It seems to me like it's an enormous waste of money and time to actually fly to Chicago to like frigid cold weather, spend the money, not only the airfare, but staying in a hotel for a few days, and then do in-person interviews where people are sick. COVID has not ended. A lot of our friends have COVID right now. It could be a super spreader. Why would someone want to go to this frigid area, which I love Chicago. Don't get me wrong. I do a lot of shows in Chicago, but I don't understand.
We worked very, very hard to make it a COVID-free event. I left on Tuesday and went to an incredibly crowded Dallas airport. Then I flew in an incredibly crowded airplane. I marched around the hotel. Then when I went to the URTA room, I wore a mask. So masks were required at the interviews. But once you left the room, you could take your mask off. So I feel that URTA was the little boy at the dike, just putting their finger in all the many holes, trying to keep it as safe and secure as they could. But, I mean, you're right. It was airfare, four nights in a hotel. It costs a lot to be there. And certainly it costs, at least I'm doing it on the university's time.
Right.
And
well,
all
how about
these
the students?
The students, of course, are coming up with all this money and trying to figure out how to do it. So I don't know. It's always expensive. Graduate school, interview process, starting your career, it's always expensive. I don't know that there's a good, clean way out of it.
I remember when we were there, we used to all hang out in the bars and the restaurants and socialize.
We still did. We all took our COVID-infected bodies down to the lobby and sat there and drank until...
Yeah, but without masks at that point, right?
Of course, you can't drink with a mask on.
Right, you cannot drink a dirty martini with a mask on.
But there were no masks required at any place, in the museums or anything in Chicago that I could find, other than the event we were attending. It's weird trying to talk to someone with a mask on, too, trying to read their face and their impressions.
You can't, and you can't read their lips. And for people who are losing their hearing, it's very difficult to hear people if you're in a room with all these people talking at the same time. Was it still that kind of insanity in the rooms where everyone's talking and then you had 15 minutes and you have to move over to the next person and the next person?
Yeah, I think no one's found a good, clean way to do that. It feels like you sit down and people are yelling at you that you have 10 minutes and 5 minutes left and lights are flashing. Let's just get a chime that we have like at the theater and go boing, boing, boing. And when you hear that, it's time to get up and leave. I
think an electrical probe, that they press a button, you're shocked, right?
The URTA people have a long day there. They're trying to organize, it's all these monkeys and cats in a barrel. They're trying to get the faculty to show up and do things on time. They're trying to explain to the students what to do and to remain calm. It's going to be all right. And there's only 3 or 4 of them running around trying to orchestrate this week-long event.
You still have more people to interview, and you're going to do that on Zoom. Are you limited to 15 minutes on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It feels much better on Zoom, I have to tell you that. There's no distractions, there's no noise, there's no chairs, there's no laughing, there's no lights flashing. Right. The 15-minute interview on Zoom, to me, feels much longer than the 15-minute interview in the room because of the distractions.
You're going to do that on Saturday.
Yes.
Right? Which is today.
That's all day
long. In
Light
Talk time. Light Talk time, it's today. Okay. So I'll be curious, without naming names, after you do these interviews today, if you feel, generally speaking, if the student has an advantage doing face-to-face, in-person versus Zoom. I want you to comment now because you can only speculate. But I'm really curious to find that out, that you could say, some people yes, some people no, or yes, definitely you want to do Zoom and forget about Chicago, or no, you really need to go to Chicago. I think it's much more powerful. That I really want to know. I think that's really going to be interesting.
You'll have to ask me next week.
I will ask you next week, which will be next Saturday, Light Talk time, but next Tuesday, recording time. So there you go.
Light Talk Day.
Light Talk Day. Well, we will talk about that on Light Talk Day. I kind of miss it, to tell you the truth. I haven't been there in years because we ended our grad program a few years ago, and I miss being with you and Stan and Brackley and Ann and Mark and all these other people that we know, because that was a lot of fun. Doing the interviews, I must say, be honest, I don't miss.
I have a solution to your problem.
Retire.
No, because as you know, URTA is working very hard to establish undergraduate interviews for design and technology. Mm-hmm. So that could well be on the books for next year. They were trying to launch it this year, but they're retweaking it a little bit. I don't really know all the details, but they realize there's a lot of BFA programs out there that are looking for students.
Speaking of URTA, our first question comes from
Lost in Chicago. So Lost in Chicago,
is she still
writes,
lost in Chicago? Get on the bus.
Not.
Get on the subway. Get your butt to Chicago O'Hare Airport. Get out of there.
I was unprepared to ask questions about grad school, so I just sat there not saying much. At my follow-up interview, what should we be discussing? You were not alone. And varying people, I think interviewing, you interview for grad school one time. So, but I do think that process of interviewing is difficult if you don't do it very much. So I think what happens is you probably are not lost as much as you thought you were. I mean, it's a 15-minute speed date. So this means you now need to get on the phone and call these people you were talking to and say, I've got some questions I want to ask you. I want to do some follow-up. So now I want to prepare you. So I just picked, half a dozen or so things that wouldn't be a bad idea for you to talk about. So if you called me, for example, maybe your first question might be what's a typical day in grad school like? What sort of projects might I be working on? What responsibilities will I have? Can we discuss classes and class load? What sets your university apart from all the other schools? What will my cohort be like? What are your alumni doing? You're trying, these are just a few questions. You're trying to find out what life on campus is going to be like. You're trying to find out, why do I want to study with this person? Who knows? Maybe you're asking questions specifically about the university. What is the male-female breakdown? What is the social life like? Is it a conservative or a liberal school? What part of town is it in? Is it in an urban area or a suburban area? Heck, what's the theater scene like? What's the nightclub scene like? You're trying to find out if you're going to fit in. So I think questions that you would ask anyone. If someone was asking you to move across country to take a job, I think you would probably be asking these questions. And fundamentally, people are asking you to move across country and spend 3 short years in their city. I don't know, David, what can you add to that?
These are all good questions, Steve. And you got to remember that when you're talking to the recruiter or the faculty member, whoever's doing it, they're just not interviewing you. You're interviewing them. So when I used to do this and I used to talk to students about my school, I would be very curious on what questions they asked me, because that tells me a lot about the type of student that they may be. First of all, are you curious? If you don't ask any questions, I get a little nervous about that because it's like, have you ever been to Dallas, or have you ever been to Long Beach? Have you been to California? And usually a follow-up interview, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, because I don't know the URTA requirements anymore, the laws, but a follow-up interview can be as long as you want. Is that correct, Steve?
Absolutely. I mean, really the only kind of guidelines in here is, and I would have to look it up, when URTA closes the interview process, which will be Saturday with some Zoom interviews, I think there's a 5 or 7 day cooling off period before recruiters can make an offer. And then you have roughly 4 weeks to think about that offer. I mean, if you know you want to go, you can accept it the same day you're made. But, some students will have the resources that they're going to want to travel to that school and do a site visit. So URTA tries to slow the process down so you're not jumping at the first offer that's made to you, that you have some time to think about it and talk it over with your partner or your parents. Some schools will help get you onto campus, with some money for airfare or maybe a hotel. Most people expect you to, if you can, to come see what life in, again, Kansas City, New York, Chicago, Maryland, what it's going to be like.
But that's really important, that follow-up interview, because I remember that there were times when the student would say something to me or ask me a question or an answer where I would say, I think this person is right for my school, or I would say, I would think this person, it would be better off studying with Brackley or go to Yale or whatever, because there are certain things that certain schools, can offer, and finding the right match is sort of like dating. I'm sure everybody's dated out here, right? You go on Bumble and you see somebody, they look great, they look a little interesting, but you don't just say right away, let's date. You want to get to know them a little better. And you want to find out if you're wasting your time or not, or if they're dangerous or things like that. So I think it's really important to come up with a list of questions, like Steve has said, right? But also find out more about where it is, what's going on, and if it's right for you.
I mean, the other thing about this is that you have some responsibilities also. And David kind of danced around it a little bit, but maybe there's no doubt in your mind you want to be a Broadway lighting designer. Maybe the West Coast schools are not the place to go. Maybe you need to go to an East Coast school. You need to be, and by the same token, you want to go into TV and film and entertainment design and rock and roll. Maybe the West Coast schools are better suited to handle that for you.
Or
so
Vegas.
That's why it's important. Yeah, or Vegas. That's why you have to understand and do a little research about these schools, because there's a lot of good schools and they're all different, and it's a boutique, I think, or curated. The 3 years you're in graduate school is a curated education. There's no doubt about it. And no one, maybe you want to be into architecture. So you start looking at those 3 or 4 programs that have an architecture component to them. And they're simply going to be probably a little bit better for you than a school that doesn't do that.
Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice that I used to use when I would apply for jobs myself. I've also served on many search committees for faculty and staff positions. And the candidates who impressed me the most were the candidates who had questions that pertained directly to our program. They did their research, and doing your research and proving that you've done your research by asking appropriate questions will indeed impress the interviewer. That is just a fact. And also, it's something you should be doing anyway. So if you can find certain things about the program and even about the mentors that you are interested in, ask them a question about it, because that will show that you are curious and that you are proactive in doing that type of research, which means the bottom line is that you will be a great student. Okay, Diane in Connecticut asks, I am a young designer just entering the profession, and everyone is talking about the new artificial intelligence programs. Hey, I guess they all listen to our show. The technology is really freaking me out. How can I learn these programs so that I am not left behind? Wow. I'm so glad I'm not a student right now. It's like gone crazy. It's amazing what's happening with AI. It really is.
Well, forget AI. I mean, it's 5 consoles. It's 50 different moving lights. It's a couple drafting programs. It is, students just want to, I can see it. Just tell me what I should learn and what I should forget.
Wow.
You're right. It is a huge technology mountain to climb.
It's overwhelming for me as a professional designer now, just dealing with it. On the other hand, a lot of students, people in their late teens and 20s and 30s, and some in their 40s, are used to technology, are used to all this technology. And we are too, because we've been dealing with it a lot. So it's hard for us to relate to it when we were grad students and we were coming in and there were just Licos and Fresnels and Parkans and 2-scene presets and maybe a cheap memory board, early memory board. That was not such a big deal, even though it was exciting. But then when moving lights came on, like Steve says, how do you learn these programs so that you're not left behind? If you are going to a grad school, if you're that young, I don't know if you are or not, then I would say find a grad school that teaches the technology. Absolutely find the grad school that teaches the technology. My opinion is that AI needs to be everywhere. AI needs to be totally integrated into the program, into all aspects of the program, whether it be technical theater, design, acting, critical studies. All this, you can integrate it. How to do it, I am not an expert on that. It would be very difficult. I would need help, with people who know a lot more about AI. But yeah, I think that would be really important. To find a grad school that has already or is planning to soon integrate AI into their curriculum and their training. If you're not looking to go to school, then there are these great Studio School of Design courses that you could take online, and they are doing a lot of cutting edge technology now. So you should look at that. And even if you're in a grad program right now and you're saying, well, I'm not getting enough AI, go check out Studio School of Design. You could use those courses to supplement your graduate training right now. I know that a lot of designers now, like Bob Bonyol, who was on our show like 2 episodes ago, episode 303, that entire show is about artificial intelligence. If you haven't listened to that show, listen to it. Because Bob talks a lot, because he's using it. He is using it out there. for a lot of projection design and production design. So you should definitely check out that show on Light Talk. That's lighttalk.org. But these designers, find a designer who's using this technology and find out if they need any help. Maybe you could be their assistant or one of their people who worked in their studios. And that way you'd learn it hands-on. I know a lot of architectural firms bring people right out of grad school into their firms who may not know all the technology, and they teach them the technology because they need the help. Well, I'm sure that a lot of designers out there right now need the help. So if you are keen and you're smart and you're curious and you're a good worker and you're a good team player, you can get a job doing this and learn it. I don't know. And Steve, do you have any other suggestions on how these people can learn how to use AI in stage design?
Well, sadly, it's our friend YouTube. There are all kinds of seminars and classes on different software there. I think where we are with AI is where we were with moving lights in the late 80s. It's going to take a while for universities to catch up. So it's easy to say, let's integrate it into everything we do. And then the rubber hits the road when they have to start spending money and developing the classes with more than just, let's all do it. I give it, I'm going to say 20 years. It took about 20 years, it feels like, for moving lights to be integrated into universities. And I suspect AI technology will take about the same.
Wow. I don't know, Steve. If it's going to take that long, I think universities are going to be shutting down.
Now, I'm talking about across every classroom, not the specialized fields that are jumping into it right now.
I really think that university leadership needs to get on the ball right away just to figure out what the hell they're going to do with writing assessments. Because there's a program out there right now, ChatGPT, that could write essays of the quality of a third-year grad student. And it's untraceable. Every single composition is original. It's untraceable. So all a student has to do is type in the prompt, say I wanted a 500-word essay on this subject with these discussion points, with critical analysis on A, B, and C, written in the style of a third-year graduate student from California.
I think that's a novelty. I think it will quickly advance beyond that. It's not just simply how can I cheat on my Romeo and Juliet paper. So this is I think this is such a minor thing that'll be left in the dust.
I think, though, writing assessment is going to have to change. But you're right, Steve, because it's going to reach a point where it's going to be used as a practical tool to help creativity. Right. I honestly believe that. I just saying that right now, the universities, at least my university, is not offering assistance on this. And they need to be helping the professors just to catch up. So getting back to the point, I really think that's important that if that's the technology you want to learn, then you need to go somewhere that'll teach you that. All right. Well, you are listening to Light Talk, and today Light Talk is sponsored by
Pet Sweat of Japan. Do you find yourself bored in the bathroom, adrift, as it were, with nothing to do but wait? From across the mighty Pacific, Pet Sweat of Japan has done it again with origami toilet paper. That's right. Next time you forgot that magazine, it will not be a problem with our origami potty paper. You can spend hours learning new and interesting origami techniques, all from the roll of your toilet paper. Easy to follow step-by-step diagrams on each piece. Just imagine, you can make an origami luster 3, a CM Lodestar motor, even a VL1600, all from your personal roll of Pet Sweat origami potty paper. Want to know the best part? All of your failures can still be put to good use. Think it can't get any better? Just wait. Sometimes your tummy says, watch out, man at work. For those times, the times you know you might not make it, you should be wearing Pet Sweat disposable underwear, perfect for the busy uprigger. It comes with a handy 5-pack no larger than a bar of soap. Remember, who needs a stinking bidet when you have Pet Sweat of Japan on your side, shipping now for the Super Bowl halftime show?
I would think by halftime it had already been used.
I just want to say, full disclosure, I was like shocked and awed at the same time. I was in one of our local Japanese like dollar stores, and there was like there's like 3 rolled up about the size of a walnut each disposable underwear. Who buys this? Who buys this? Is this like business people throwing it in their luggage? Who buys disposable adult underwear?
And how do you dispose of it? That's always the question.
I don't want to get there. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to
get there.
I don't want to go there.
Well, I do have a question about this origami thing. How can you fold up toilet paper? Because it seems like, you want toilet paper to be soft and absorbent. So it's made in this very soft tissue paper that really doesn't fold very well.
That's not true in Japan. I think the thing about Japan is we say Texas is a whole nother country, but really Japan is a whole nother country. I did some research into this, and you can buy 2 types of tissue paper. You can buy soft tissue paper, which you are describing and which I suspect most of us use. And you can also buy firm, rigid toilet paper. And I don't want to go there either.
That's the type of toilet paper they used at my old high school. It was basically wax paper. They were the little squares. They would break off into squares, and you can't spare a square. and they were like covered in wax. They were like wax paper. Which was, I just
you can cover your head with it too on a rainy day.
Yes, then you can use it for origami, but for toilet paper, it's anyway. And now back to Light Talk. Well, the sound of those rabid monkeys prancing about the studio tells us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about playing the game.
And what game would that be?
It's the game of love, love, love. It's the game. That's an old song. Okay, well, this actually comes from an email from one of our listeners. Her name is Deborah. She lives in Wisconsin, and she writes, "Everyone tells me that I need to be more sociable, but I am a private person. How do you get ahead of developing your career when you are not interested in, quote, playing the game, unquote?" Well, playing the game. Theater is a very sociable art form. That's what we do. A group of people get together, we create, we collaborate, we believe in synergy, it happens, and everybody gets really excited about it. We feel really great about the work. And a big part of that is being sociable. Now, in the old days, there were some people who took advantage of other people in this profession. Some of us have personal stories about it. We know personally that may have happened to us. We know people who it happened to. Now, a lot of people did this and probably still do, but you don't have to do it. You never want to do anything that is against your own personal morals. And that means doing a show that you don't feel really strong about, or that offends you, or you think will offend other people or hurt other people. You certainly don't want to do anything that is unprofessional and unethical. Like, I don't know, cheat someone out of a show or lie or badmouth other people just to get a job, just to get ahead. Totally uncool. That is something that, yes, you should never do that because you're going to feel like a jerk if you do something like that, and you may regret it for the rest of your life. But sometimes, some people are tempted to do things that would make them feel bad about themselves. Or have other people say, well, of course, this guy got the job because he did this or she did that, and he shouldn't have done it. So everybody's reading between the lines here, I'm sure. But it could be that you would do things that you would never even consider doing. So that could be playing the game. But I think that playing the game is just being sociable. Going out with people after the rehearsal, You don't have to drink. If you don't drink alcohol, you could just drink, club soda, which is my favorite drink right now, and dirty martinis. Not mixed together. The dirty martini is totally different from a club soda. And of course, the Aperol Spritz is always a good choice. But that being said, you don't have to do any of that. You just have to, or should, be a part of the team. And that's being part of the team. You don't have to do something that's immoral. You don't have to do that. And if someone expects you to do that, then the way I look at it is you shouldn't be working with that person. You got to have your dignity. A Broadway show is not that important. Okay, everybody thinks I'm crazy now, but it's true. It really isn't. So that type of game is not a game I'm a part of. I will not play that game. But if you're sociable, and this is the truth, because I know a lot of people, a lot of our colleagues, a lot of our brothers and sisters are a lot younger, and they're very successful. People like Zach and Driscoll and Ann. These are people who made it without having to do that. So you can do that. They're all sociable people. They're all a blast to be with. They're great. That to me is not necessarily playing a game, but it's just being a theater person. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I think it comes back to what are you losing to win? It's the same thing with, how much money do you have to be happy? At some point, happiness and success and feeling good about yourself and having a life outside the theater, you just want to avoid the kind of freak show of bottom dwellers that expect some kind of compromise. I know you're working a club date, and someone says, we're paying you X, but if you want to keep the job, I get 10% back. And you think, I'm a programmer, I'm in college, and I need this, and what is it? It's only 10% of my salary being kicked back every week to keep my job. There are other jobs. They're just other jobs. So I think once you, let yourself be compromised, the next time it's a little easier than the next time it's a little easier than that. I mean, the first time it's going to be hard just to say, screw off. But you need to learn to say that and, maintain your dignity and, it's people, good producers, good directors are looking for people with talent and integrity. And so there's no games being played there. And those are, and you'll recognize it. I think the more successful someone is, producer, director, the more generous they are and the more honest, actually, they are. I think it's the mid-level, low-level people trying to climb some make-believe ladder that has ruined it for some people.
Because those people, their talent doesn't measure up. So they figure that they need to do this to compensate.
They're almost a caricature of what a real director or producer or designer is.
Right. If you feel you have to do this to get ahead, maybe you ought to look at your own work and how you work, because you don't have to do it. If you're, it's something that Paul Kern used to tell me. I used to thank Paul a lot of times for hiring me because, the guy, he changed my career. It was amazing. And you know what Paul would always say? He said, David, you never have to thank me. He said, you earned this because you're good. Your talent is why I hire you. That meant a lot to me. It still does to this day. But I'm just saying is that if you feel that you need to compromise yourself just to get ahead because your talent is not going to do it, then that's a problem. That's a real, real big problem. And like we both said, you just don't need to be working with those people. You don't need to be working with people who expect that from you. So I guess that's playing the game, Anyway, Steve has the last question of the day.
It's Angela, living in Annapolis. She writes, do you have show nightmares? This is really a timely question.
Oh my God!
I had a nightmare last night about Cyndi Lauper, and I was trying trying to do her show, and we had catastrophic failure, and I mean it was just, what is going on? I mean, maybe I shouldn't have had that hot dog at 11 o'clock at night. I mean,
Never eat a hot dog.
Show nightmares all the time. I mean, nightmares. I mean, waking nightmares about. Is this the show that everyone's going to find out I'm a fraud? Nightmares about being late to the theater. Yeah, all these things that are kind of out of our control. I think that falls into the category of show nightmares. And I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people, and some of them are actually quite successful, and they still have show nightmares. So I think this is normal. I just try to, catch myself every now and then and breathe and say, stop, take a big breath. Don't freak out. Don't make something that went wrong. Don't make it bigger than it really is. And particularly if I wake up in the middle of the night and I've been having a nightmare about the show, I say, that's a dream. Stop worrying about a dream. It's, that's what you have a therapist for. Go there and explain it to them. I don't know. Do you have show nightmares, David?
Oh, I have show nightmares that started about 40 years ago and have not ended. I have two recurring show nightmares, but they're in different locations, but they're the same type of dream, basically the same thing. One of the dreams is I'm in some foreign country somewhere doing a show, and it's time to leave. It's, the show's opened and it's time to go to the airport. And I can't get to the airport. I realize for some reason that I haven't packed yet, so I run back to the hotel. My plane leaves in 20 minutes and I'm like, all my stuff is everywhere. And I've got like 2 suitcases and I've got enough clothes and everything to fit 7 suitcases. And I'm trying to pack things in. And I realize I have to return the car to the car rental place. There's no way I'm going to make this flight. So that is, one of the show nightmares. And of course, it changes every time. It could be a train. I'm stuck on the tube. In a tube. I'm stuck, on a bus. I'm stuck in a rental car. It could be a number of different places and a number of different situations. The other one I have is even scarier, and that is I show up to a gig, and the show is hung right, and the lights are there. They're all up, and I realize that it's final dress rehearsal. Nothing's been focused. Nothing's been cued. I don't even know what show it is. which is kind of goes in there. It's well. Sort of, I have no idea. I never see the money, but and it's usually with directors I know. It's with Paul, or it's with Ken, or it's with other people I know that I've worked with for years. And I'm saying I'm going to let Paul down, and we're like, oh my God, and it's so weird because there are different shows. It's like it happens, at different times and different shows in different places, and it's like, how am I going to get the show focused? I don't even know what the show is. And how am I going to cue the show? And the show has final dress and opens tomorrow night. So that's my other show nightmare. And these nightmares crop up once every 6 or 7 months. And it's so weird. I don't know. So yes, I have show nightmares. And my advice to you, Steve, is never eat a backstage Frank at 11 o'clock at night, because that's definitely will create nightmares. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
okay, here's my Stan imitation. If you do decide to litigate, the Snoot Group, with the legal team of Sparks, Burnout, and Chase, will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach and the Republic of Texas.
Where it's frozen, And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you much more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Toodles.